Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Sinka. In today's class, we're going to be making this gown, and here are the measurements we're going to be using for this project. You will also be needing one special measurement, which is from your shoulder to your desired length, just like this. For this tutorial, I used just 2 yards of silk material, and I'm going to be showing you how to draft it on this plain fabric. This is not the fabric that I used. The fabric that I used, the shop wasn't showing, so I had to just redo the tutorial on this one. Alright, so I folded my fabric into 2, just like this. Then after that, I fold it over into 4, like this, leaving my zip allowance in front, just like this. Alright, so my fabric is already folded into 4, such that I left my zip allowance, and here is unfold. That's going to be your center front, and here is your back. That's the zip allowance there. So the first thing I'll do is to rule my guidelines so that I can have a starting point for my project. Then after that, I measure down the length of my armhole, then my nipple points, and also my waist length with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then after that, I extend all the lines. And on my shoulder, and note all my measurement is going to start from that folded edge. So on my guideline, I inserted my shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder is 16 divided by 2, that is 8. Then I rule that line down to my armhole line, which is my chest line. Then after that, I input all my circumference measurements. On the chest line, I input my bust divided by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance. And on the waistline, I input my waist measurements divided by 4 plus 1 inch dart and 1 inch seam allowance. You're going to be having waist darts on this pattern. So after that, I connect these 2 points together. Alright, so the next thing now is to draft the neckline. So from the folded edge again, I measure 3 inches neck width, like this. Then after that, I measure 1 inch downward from the guideline, like this, on that 3 inches point. Then after that, I just roll it like this. So the next thing now is to connect it from this line to your chest line. So you are going to use your French cuff, and then you are going to connect it from that line down to the chest line, like this. Can you see? So the next thing you want to do is to measure the neckline down. So for the back neckline, because we're drafting both the front and the back together, for the back neckline, I measured 1/2 inch, and then I connect it this way. Then for the front neckline, I measure 2.5 inches downward, or you can just measure 3.5 from the original guideline. So then I connect it this way. When that is done, the next thing now is to insert our bust dart and also our waist dart. So from the chest line, I'm going to measure 3 inches downward, and I'll make a point. Then on the nipple point, I'm going to measure the nipple to nipple distance divided by 2. The nipple to nipple distance is 8 divided by 2, that is 4. So I measure the 4 and I make a point. Then I connect it from the waistline to the nipple point, like this. I just roll it. Then from the side seam, I connect it to that nipple point as well, on that 3 inches mark. Then the next thing is to measure 1 inch down from the nipple point. That is where the waist dart is going to end, and also you go in here by 1 inch. That is where the bust dart is going to end. Then you take the width of the dart. I added 1 inch dart, so that is ½ inch on both sides of this line. I'll mark it half on both sides and I will connect it this way. Then for the bust dart, the width of your bust dart is the difference between your front waist length and your back waist length. So the difference between my back waist length and front waist length is 1.5. So I took that of 0.75 on both sides of this line and then I connect it this way. Can you see? So the dart width on this line now is 1.5. Then I come out by ½ inch on the dart leg, the midpoint, like so, and then I blend it to the waist this way and also blend it to the chest line like this. I'm going to leave the link to how to draft a basic bodice in the description box, so watch out for it. So the next thing now is to cut this out. Don't forget, we're going to cut this out first, and then after that we are going to do some other alterations on the back part of it. Alright, so the next thing before cutting it out, don't forget to slant the zip allowance. So just come in by ½ inch on the waistline and then you blend it this way so that you can slant the zip allowance like this. So the next thing now is to cut it out. Alright, so after cutting it out, I notch the zip allowance. Then you take off the front. Don't forget to notch the position of the dart. So I take off the front and then I'm going to work on the back. These last two pieces is your back. So the first thing you want to do is to blend this side the way it should be. You know, we added bust dart to the front, so just blend it from waist to the chest line like this, and then you trim off that extension of ½ inch that you added to the side seam. Then after that, you take the front and then you measure the width of your bust dart. If you remember, the width of my bust dart is 1.5. So I'm going to trim off that 1.5 from the back length. So just measure from the waist length upward, measure the 1.5 and then you roll it, then you trim it off. So the back is going to be 1.5 inches shorter than the front. Alright, so measure the width of your zip allowance on the upper part and also measure it on the waistline, then you roll your zip allowance properly. So the next thing you want to do is to input the waist dart for the back. So from the zip allowance line, you measure 4 inches inward and then you notch that position for your back waist dart. Then you can also rule your armhole line, that is that your chest line. You can rule it so that it will guide you in inserting the waist dart. So rule from the 4 inches to the chest line like this, and then on that point you measure 1 inch downward. That is where the waist dart is going to stop, and then you are going to take that of ½ inch on both sides of the line and then you connect it this way. So that is the waist dart for the back pattern. Don't forget to transfer the dart to the other side. So if you open the back, this is how the back looks. Don't forget all the little illustrations we've done to the back. They are very important. Alright, so you put the back aside and then you take the front again, and then you cut out the front neckline. And then you're going to transfer your dart to the other side as well. So first I'll notch the center of the bust dart like this, and then I'll transfer my chalk to the other side. I'll also mark where the waist dart stops, and then that will guide me in chalking the bust dart and also the waist dart. I'm going to leave the link to how to draft basic bodice in the description box so that you can learn more about basic bodice. Alright, so if you open it up, this is how the front looks. So the next thing you want to do is to cut out facing for the armhole. So place another fabric into 4 folds. I'm just going to be using these pieces, and this piece is folded into 4. So you trace out the shape of the armhole the way I'm showing you here. You trace out the shape of the armhole, and then after that you cut it out, or you can just cut the way I'm cutting it, just to trace the shape of the armhole. That's all. And the width of the facing is going to be 3 inches, so you measure 3 inches around like I'm showing you here. Measure your 3 inches, then after that you cut it out. So this is the facing, and that's what we're going to be using to turn the armhole. You're going to be finishing the armhole with this facing. You can see the way it is, and we have 4 of that because we have 4 armholes, 2 in front and then 2 at the back. Alright, so moving on, we are going to be cutting the lower part of the gown, and then you're going to be folding your fabric the same way you folded it for the top. First fold into 2, and then after that you fold it over into 4. This part here is on fold. So the next thing is to rule your guideline again. Then after that you place your waist measurement. The waist measurement for the upper part, the waist length is 17, so place that 17 on your guideline and measure down 30 inches. Measure down 30 inches and rule it. So after that you measure down your hip line. The standard hip line is 8 inches, so I measure 8 inches. So from your waist to your hip is 8 inches. You measure it and then you roll the line. Alright, don't forget all your measurement is starting from the folded edge. So on the guideline, I input my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch that, and then 1 inch seam allowance. Then on the hip line, I input my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance. Then after that, I connect these 2 points together with my curve. Then the next thing you want to do is to connect from your hip line to the center of the length like this. So just connect it together this way. Then after that, you add your ½ inch seam allowance to that line. Then the next thing is to input your waist dart. So from the center of the front like this, you measure 4 inches inward, and then the length of your waist dart for the front is going to be 4 inches. So you make a point, then you are going to take ½ inch dart on both sides, and then you connect it this way. Alright, don't forget to add ½ inch seam allowance to the waistline like this. That is the allowance you're going to be using to join this part to the half length. Alright, so the next thing now is to cut this out. Then I'll fold my zip allowance like this. Just fold your zip allowance over like this, and then you continue cutting. When you're done cutting, you notch the position of your waist dart. And then you transfer the waist dart to the second side of the front. This is the front now. That is the front. Then for the back, the back is into 2 pieces, and then you mark 6 inches downward on the waist dart. The waist dart for the back is 6 inches in length, don't forget that. Measure the 6 inches and then you roll your dart. The dart width is still 1 inch, half on both sides of the line. Alright, and don't forget to notch the zip allowance. So this is how the back looks. So this is the complete front. And this is the complete back. Alright, so like I said, I cut mine out on this beautiful silk material. So the next thing you want to cut out is to cut out the bias that you're going to be using to pipe the neckline. Bias is usually cut on angle 45 degrees. There is no specific length for the bias, and the width of the bias is just 1.5 inch. The width is 1.5 inch. Then I cut it out. Here I have about 22 inches. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is to use this strip now to form your bias. So first you fold about 1/4 inch. You fold 1/4 inch on both sides, like I'm showing you. Fold 1/4 inch inward on both sides, and then you iron it. Can you see? You fold 1/4 inch in on both sides. So after that, you fold it into 2, and then you iron it. You can see this is how our bias is looking. If you have a bias maker, it will be easy for you. I actually have a bias maker, but I just needed to show you how to do this without the bias maker. So let's get sewing. Alright, so this is the front part of my gown. The first step is to sew in your dart. So I'm starting with the bust dart. So I folded the dart, then I stitch. When you're done with the bust dart, you also stitch in the waist dart. Alright, I'm done stitching in the darts, both the waist and the bust darts, you can see. And this is how it's looking. So the next thing you want to do is to take the lower part of the front. This is the lower part of the front. You also stitch in your waist dart. Alright, so I'm done stitching in the waist dart. The next thing you want to do is to join the upper part and the lower part of the front together. So this is the upper part of the front, and then this is the lower part of the front. So match them together, right side facing each other, and then you're going to stitch together on the waistline with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You may want to pin it so that it can be easy for you. Alright, so I'm done joining it together, and this is how it's looking. Ensure your darts are equal. Ensure the dart on the upper part and the lower part are on the same line. Alright, so the next thing is to work on my facing. This is the facing. So I'll just fold 1/4 inch at the lower part of the facing like this, and then I'm going to just make my stitch. This is just to neaten the raw edges of the facing. Alright, so the facing is 4, as you can see. 2 is going to be for the front, and then 2 will be for the back. So this is how the facing looks. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is to attach the facing to the armhole of the front, since we are still working with the front. So you place the right side of the facing on the right side of the dress, and then you are going to stitch it on the armhole with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so when you are done, this is how it's looking. So the next thing you want to do is to notch the facing, and then you're going to top stitch the facing. So after notching, just push the facing like this, and then you are going to top stitch on the facing. This will help the facing to stay very well by the time you are done making your dress. Alright, so we are done top stitching the facing. So if you flip it to the wrong side, it's going to just relax well. And from the right side, it's looking like this. Alright, so we are moving on. This is the back, the upper part of the back. So first step is to sew in the waist dart. You sew in the waist dart. Then after that, you put your facing on the armhole. Alright, so I'm done sewing in the waist dart of the 2 pieces. So the next thing is to finish the armhole with my facing. So just place the right side of the facing on top of the right side of the dress, and then you're going to stitch together. Then after that, you notch and then top stitch, just the step you did in front. Alright, so we're done with the upper part. The next one is to take the down part of the back. This is the down part. So you also sew in the waist dart, and the length of the waist dart for the back is 6 inches, don't forget. Alright, so I'm done sewing in the waist dart. So the next thing is to join together. So you join the upper parts together with the lower part. So you place them on top of each other, right side facing, and then you're going to stitch together on the waistline with 1/2 inch seam allowance. And ensure the darts align properly. The dart of the upper part and the lower part should be on the same line. So when you're done with one side, you do the second side. Alright, so I'm done joining them together, and then this is how it's looking. The next thing is to join together on the zip allowance part. So place them on top of each other, right side to right side, and then you're going to join the two sides together. You can see, place them together on top of each other, right side facing. All right, so from the waistline you're going to measure 9 inches downward. From your waist joining you measure 9 inches downward, and then you're going to just follow your zip allowance and stitch it all the way down. So after that, the next thing you want to do is to insert your zip. So I'm going to be fixing my zipper. So you place the right side of the zipper on top of the right side of the dress, and then you are going to stitch the zipper to the dress. Following your zip allowance. When you're done with one side, you turn it upside down and do the second side. Alright, so I'm done attaching the zipper to the dress, and this is how it's looking. Ensure the zip allowance on both sides of the joining are on the same line. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to finish off the facing. So first you iron your facing. Just push your facing to the wrong side of the dress and then you iron it. Since you're ready to stitch it, it will be easy for it to relax easily. So for it to remain permanently in place, you need to use your hemming gum. So this is my hemming gum. So I'm just going to put it in between the facing and the dress. So just put your hemming gum in between your facing and your dress, and then you're going to iron in place. This will help the facing to remain permanently in the same position. And you're going to do the same thing for the four sides of the armhole. 2 in front and then 2 at the back. Alright, so you do the same thing for the front. Iron your dart and then you put the hemming gum on the facing. Alright, so I'm done. If you have excess facing hanging on the neck, just trim it off. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is to close the side. So you take to the sewing machine and then you place the two of them together on top of each other, right side facing right side, and then you are going to close the side with your seam allowance. I added 1 inch seam allowance, so you're going to close the side with 1 inch seam allowance. All right, I'm done closing the sides. So the next thing we want to do now is to finish the neckline with our bias strip. All right, so we are going to be starting the bias from the back. So you open your zipper and then you place the bias on the wrong side of the dress. This is the wrong side and this is the zip allowance part. So place it on top of the zip allowance, on top of the zipper, and then use 1/2 inch to wrap it the way I'm showing you. And then you're going to stitch the bias to the neckline with 1/4 inch seam allowance. 1/4 inch seam allowance. So when you make your stitch and you get to the armhole, you back stitch and then you are going to leave 2.5 inches space. Then you bring the front, starting from the front armhole again. You can see the way I'm doing it. So place that 2.5 inches chalk, place it on the front armhole. We are still working on the wrong side, don't forget that. And then you backstitch, you stitch and backstitch again. Ensure you reinforce your seam and then you stitch the bias all around the front neckline. And we are still sewing the bias to the neckline with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So when you get back to the second front armhole, you backstitch again and then you are going to measure 2.5 inches again. Place your chalk on it and then you continue to the second side of the back. Place it on the armhole of the back, and we are still working on the wrong side of the neckline, and then you continue stitching the bias to the neckline. So backstitch again, ensure you reinforce your seam, and then you continue making your stitch. You can see the way it is. So place your bias on it, on the neckline, and then you sew with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So when you're about to get to the end of the neckline, you cut the excess bias off, leaving 1/2 inch extra. Then you wrap the 1/2 inch round the way I'm showing you. So just place it there like so, and then you make your stitch all the way to the end. It's tricky, but it's easy. Alright, so when that is done, the next thing now is to top stitch the bias to the neckline. Alright, so we are going to be top stitching the bias to the right side of the neckline. So fold the bias the way I'm showing you. If you had ironed the bias the way I said earlier, this step would be very easy for you. So just push in all the raw edges in between the bias and then make your stitch on the right side of the dress. So take your time and then make your top stitch. Let it be neat, because this is the center of attraction, you know, is the right side. So just keep pushing in the raw edges inward and then you top stitch. I didn't fast forward this because I want you to see the neckline very well. So take your time, don't rush it. So when you get back to the other end, you cut off the excess zipper head and then you continue making your stitch. Ensure everything is nice and neat. Alright, so we are done with the neckline. And this is how the neckline is looking. You can see how beautiful it is. So you don't have to rush. You take your time and you do it. Alright, so we are almost done. So the next thing to cut out now is the remaining length of the gown. If you are following, you know the length we have here, the total length we have here now is 30 inches. If you are following me. Alright, and I said I want the total length of the gown to be 42 inches. So you remove the 30 inches from the total length of the gown. 42 minus 30 will give me 12 inches. So we need to cut out another fabric that measured 12 inches in length, but then we need to add our seam allowance to it and then the hemming allowance. So I'm going to be adding 2 inches to that 12 inches to make it 14 inches. So I'm going to cut another fabric that measured 14 inches, and then the width of this is going to be 3 times the circumference of the lower part. So you just have to measure round the lower part of this dress now. You measure it all around. Whatever you get, you multiply your answer by 3. So when I measured mine, I got 53 inches. I got 53 inches. So I'm now going to cut another fabric that measured 14 inches in length and then 159 in width. You understand me? So what I did is that I told you earlier that I used just 2 yards for this dress. And you know, usually this type of fabric, they come in length 60. Alright, so that 60 already covered the 53 inches that I want. So what I did is that I folded the material into 3. So first I folded it into 2. You can see the way I'm doing it here. I folded it into 2. Then I measured the remaining length of my gown, which is 14 inches. If you remember from our calculation, it was remaining 12, then plus 2 inches allowance, making 14. So I measured the 14 inches, then I make a mark. I ensure the 14 inches is straight. And you can see the fabric is folded into 2. Then again, I fold it over again like this, making it to be into 3 folds. You can see it's folded into 3. You can see the way I'm doing it, so that it's not going to be shifting up and down because of the kind of material I'm using. I iron it down so that it can lay flat, and then so that my lines can be straight. You can see it's folded into 3. I ensure everything is nice and flat and they are both equal. The three of them are equal. Alright, so the remaining length of my gown is 14 inches. I ensure that everything is still intact and is still 14 inches. Then I slit this part open all the way down. Then I cut it off from here. So I'm cutting on the three of them together here. And as you can see, I have three pieces, 1, 2, and then 3. So what I did was that I joined the three of them together to give me that my width. You know, I said I want 159 inches width. All right, so and you know we have 60 inches on each pieces now. We have 60 inches. So I didn't trim off the excess because the fuller the better. So I joined the 60 inches together. The three of them, I joined it together. All right, so this is me here trying to be sure everything is all right. You know, we already have 30 inches for the upper part, so I place my tape pressure 30 inches away and then I ensure I have up to my desired length. All right, so here I've joined the three pieces together and I've hemmed the lower part. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to run my gather stitch on it. It's such a long strip. So just take your time, run your gather stitch, and when you are done, you pull your gather to the width. The total width of the lower part of the gown is 53, so I pull the gather to 54 so that I can join it together and get that 53 inches. So I'm done pulling my gather and then I confirmed if it's up to what I want. If it's not up to, I'll adjust it. If it's more than, I'll also adjust it. So I ensure I have exactly 54 inches so that I can put them together and stitch together with ½ inch on both sides. So by the time I'm done stitching together, it will now be exactly 53 inches. So you can see I'm trying to adjust and ensure I have the exact measurements that I want. All right, so the next thing now is to join together the way I'm showing you here. You join together with ½ inch seam allowance. All right, so after joining it together, this is how it's looking. So the next thing you want to do is to match the joining together with the center back, and then you are going to join it together with the upper part of your dress, right side to right side. So when you're done stitching them together, you notch on that your center front and also your center back so that the V shape can relax very well. You can see the way it's looking, and that's it. Our gown is ready. You can see the gown is so beautiful. All right, so a closer look at the finished work. You can see our bust dart. That's our bust dart. Then our waist dart. Ensure they align both up and down. And then your side seam, you can see both the front and the back, they should be on the same line. And also your zip allowance, also your zip line, you can see they need to be continuous like that. They should be on the same line. And this is the armhole, then the neckline. And here is the outcome of our beautiful dress. I love this dress. It's so comfy. What? I so much love it. And yes, thanks to amazing 20,000 subscribers. If you're following me on my other social media platform, you know I announced yesterday that we are now 20,000 bigger. Yeah. Looking forward to 50,000 subscribers soon. Thanks everyone. I really appreciate you. Wow, I'm so happy, so excited today. God bless you all. I love you all. I love you all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.